This is In Character. I'm your host, Gerard Robinson, Vice President for Education at the Advanced Studies in Culture Foundation. Megan has joined me to do a deeper dive into her work as an educator. She was a part of a larger group conversation on resiliency. I liked some of the things she had to say, as did her peers, and she's back with us again to talk more about her work. So Megan, welcome.
Thank you so much for inviting me to this conversation. It's an honor.
In fact, you are the first person from the group I've had a chance to interview. Talk to us high level about who you are and what kind of work do you do in the area of resiliency, or as we talk about resiliency, I should say.
Sure. So I'm a special education teacher by training. This is my 14th year in the classroom. And my 21st year working in some capacity with people with disabilities. And so currently I am out of the classroom working as a teacher on special assignment, supporting schools in our district that are seeking to take the next step in inclusive practices and finding ways to include students with disabilities in all aspects of campus life, from core curriculum to electives to activities. And so that's really my passion and something that I'm really fortunate to get to be able to do. It's something that requires a lot of resiliency for our students who are in new environments and have higher expectations, for our teachers who feel like they're first-year teachers sometimes, and for myself, right? Because you have to kind of help folks see that there's light at the end of the tunnel and that students really can succeed when the right supports are there. So that's a little bit of my background.
I'm on the national board of Respectability, which is a nonprofit organization headquartered in Maryland. And what we do is to advocate, or really to educate the public about the 55+ million people with disabilities in the United States. And so we know there's at least 6 million students with a disability. We know we're in the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disability Act, and there's other laws that impact it. What attracted you to work with this particular population? Because it's an important one, but it's one that we often don't have people saying, you know what, this is my passion, here's why.
Well, in college, I happened to meet the right people who knew what my strengths were. And I was a freshman in college looking for a part-time job. And a friend said, why don't you try respite care? And so respite care is when you go in and into families' homes and provide support to families. In California, it's families who have a child with a qualifying developmental disability. Mm-hmm. And so I had babysat since I was, probably 10 years old, but I had never spent any time with people with disabilities. And so the first day I thought, what do I know? I don't know anything about cerebral palsy or autism or Down syndrome. And these families welcomed me into their homes and really shared with me how joyful their children are and how their children brought such life to their families. And I realized that I had just been in this bubble, right? And we have these stereotypes of others who we have never met before. And through that experience, I really enjoyed it. I thought I was going to go off and be a genetics counselor, and decided that wasn't something I could do. And I ended up going back to the nonprofit that ran the respite care program and worked with adults with developmental disabilities in a group home setting, and loved it and realized how important inclusive education is. Mm-hmm. The adults that I was supporting had grown up in the 1970s. So they were excited because it was the first generation of kids with Down syndrome and autism and cerebral palsy who were able to go to public school. Mm-hmm. And being a part of their home, many of them had gone to school together, K through 12, and we're now 40 years old living together and we're tired of each other. And, have the same squabbles that we all have in our families. And for me, that was really the moment where I realized it so matters what happens to you, from birth to graduation, and what experiences you have and what networks you have and support. And so when I saw the people that I cared really deeply about not being cared deeply about when we went to the grocery store, or just girls sitting around on a Saturday night wanting to know when their boyfriends are going to call, and not to have the same opportunities. So that was when I decided to go back to school and become a special education teacher.
You talked about stereotypes, and there are a lot for people with disabilities and without. With people with disabilities in particular, you talked about the grocery store. Tell us what happened there, and then how do you prepare the general public on the, hey, that's not cool, you shouldn't do it, and why? Just provide us some insight and guidance.
Sure. So I think we make an assumption that someone's not capable based on how they look. And one of the things that I really notice the most, it's something I see today even as a classroom teacher, but it's not talking to the individual with a disability. It's pretending like either they don't exist or that their disability doesn't exist. And so rather than, if we were at a grocery store, rather than letting the adult who I was supporting, saying, oh, your total is $10, ma'am, they would look to me. And so I would say, oh, I'm not buying it. And so I would turn to the adult I was supporting and say, did you hear what she said? Like how much she said it's going to cost? And then they would say, oh, okay. And so just trying to redirect the conversation back to the person who it's about, and trying to model, talking to someone as is age appropriate, and asking, can I support you with that? Would you like help with that? And not assuming that someone couldn't do it.
That is so real. And in fact, I was part of the problem. And now that you talk about the grocery store, 1819, I was a box boy at a grocery store in Los Angeles. And I can remember having people who physically, I said, okay, they may have a challenge. And I would speak to the Megans. Mm-hmm. Or my voice would change as if I was speaking to someone who was in middle school, elementary school. And so, yeah, that's so true. You said school teacher. What state are you in, and what city?
I am in San Diego, California.
Very pretty part of California, and nice and sunny but I guess at this time of year, what we would call warm. It is warm, but people in Phoenix, Arizona would probably laugh at what you call warm in San Diego.
Yes, they would.
So many people in San Diego or the Golden State, or really the country, may never have an opportunity to meet someone who is their Teacher of the Year. So walk us through the process of the first time someone said, we think you should apply, or we're going to go ahead and volunteer you, to the moment you received the phone call. Just walk us through that.
Sure. So it began at my high school. So I was working at Del Norte High School in San Diego. And the first I knew about it was when the principal's assistant sent out the email to all staff saying it's time to vote on our nominees. And so I went to go see which one of my peers was nominated. And I was like, oh, that's me. And so I just thought, there's no way. Like, the caliber of educators that I taught with were phenomenal. Like, by far the best teaching community I've ever been a part of. And so that it went from complete surprise to then utter shock when the school selected me. I had actually only at that we had relocated from Northern California, so I'd only been at the school for 3 years. It was such an incredible honor to me to be nominated and recognized by my own peers. And from there, it went to the district, which I thought, absolutely not, no way. And you go to the county, And San Diego County does this incredible production. It's like going to the Oscars, or what I could imagine the Oscars is. There's red carpet. My husband was like, I have to rent a tuxedo for a teacher event. Like, what? And so that blew me away as well, being recognized as a County Teacher of the Year. And then when I received a phone call saying that the team from the California Department of Education was going to come visit my classroom in a week, I thought they had to be kidding. Like none of it seemed really real to me. And I kept waiting for them to actually like call and say, there's a mistake in your application, you didn't do it correctly. And it very much felt that way when the state of California called me. And then I was a top 4 finalist for National Teacher of the Year in 2017. So certainly when you get that phone call from Washington, D.C., you think, oh my gosh, oh, what did I do wrong?
That's true.
Yes.
My loan's been paid, right?
Yes. Yes. So it's been incredible. And I think, one of the most incredible things about being recognized as Teacher of the Year is that you have an opportunity to have conversations with people such as yourself. But you have this incredible community of educators from across our country who are doing phenomenal things and who push you into spaces that maybe you didn't think, well, I don't really think I belong there. And they bring out the best in you. And I often said that the year that I was Teacher of the Year was probably my worst year in the classroom because I was away so much. And the following year, I think, was my best year in the classroom because I really felt like we had to up our game. So much so that the staff that worked in my classroom said, time out, stop. I had them a part of a research project at the University of Kansas. We did a social justice unit, volunteered in the community, and they were like, we're done. Can we just do school?
Mm-hmm. And so you said you brought a lot to the classroom. You mentioned the Kansas piece. What is one thing you want to leave with the audience as they think about what we can do to have the same kind of impact you have? We may not be in the classroom, but it seems like you're touching people outside the classroom. What can we do to support teachers like you, particularly the population you serve?
One of the first lessons I learned in my credential program was Ann Donnellan, who's a retired professor at San Diego State University, and she had written this paper called The Least Dangerous Assumption. And that to me has been kind of my core philosophy about how to support and listen and hear the voices of people with disabilities. And when I'm in a situation where I don't know how to interact or how to respond, I really think about that. Like, what would be the least dangerous assumption in this moment? If I presume that this person is capable of sharing this information with me or if capable of completing this activity and they do it, fantastic. If they're not able to do it, that's okay. We'll find another way. And so I think, when you're out in the community, when you're walking your dogs in the neighborhood or in line at the bank, just starting with simple hellos and making that assumption that we have much more in common than differences, really.
Absolutely. Well, I'm definitely clear why you were Teacher of the Year for California. So again, congratulations.
Thank you.
For that. Thank you for sharing and opening up your personal story as well about what attracted you to the profession. And also let's thank the person in college who made the recommendation, because you never know what seed you plant and how it's going to grow over time. So thank you so much for what you do. Glad to have you as a part of our network, work you mentioned. And the founder of the Institute where I work, Dr. James Hunter, said that when you look at monumental change in world history, it's network. People working together is important. So thank you for continuing that work. Again, Megan, thank you for joining me on In Character. This is Gerard Robinson. Look forward to the next conversation. Take care.